Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and today I'm going to be showing you how to solo Smartphone Inc. from Cosmodrome Games. This is a lightweight Euro about becoming the best smartphone manufacturer and distributor in the world. Alright gamers, so I'm going to just play a sample turn or two from Smartphone Inc. so you can get a sense of how it works. We'll of course be playing with Steve, the AI, so you can get a sense of how he works as well. This game is divided into 8 phases, and you go through each of them 5 times because there are 5 rounds. And I'm just going to walk you through how everything works step by step, and I feel like that's a good way to kind of learn the game. I'll try to keep it quick, and it's going to be us versus Steve. We are going to go first because we are the Blue Atlantis Corporation, so we are starting with 4 victory points. Steve starts with 5, and that determines our turn order, at least for now. Although it's going to be changed by the prices of our phones, as you will see. And then Steve is going to be this Shooting Star Corporation with black pieces, and he gets an improvement tile here that we're going to talk about in just a moment. There are actually 2 boards that you can play this game with, but I'm playing with the smaller one, mostly because it's easier to fit on camera, haha. But they work roughly the same. So if you understand how this game works, the other board's actually bigger but simpler, so that's pretty good. So just to talk about setup, here's some things that have basically happened. We have set our base price at 5, because that is the starting price in this game. We've got our marker, phase and round marker pieces here. These are improvement tiles that we are going to figure out how to get momentarily. Here's our map. So because it's a 2-player game and not a 3-player, so this is a map for 2 to 3 players specifically, we've put retailers out to kind of box us in and make us compete for space a little bit. So these non-retailer regions are places where we can build presence and sell phones. So this is the idea of this game, is to produce phones, sell them, become the best at that, and get the most victory points. So we certainly want to sell our phones. However, these retailers also can give us some bonuses. So we'll kind of think about whether that's something that we want to do further into the game. I've put Steve in Washington as his starting place just because his board's right here. I put myself in Mexico because it's close to me. I decided to block off the East Coast between us to kind of give us some even spread space. And then West Canada is the other medium spot where one of us could have started based on this little colorful starting spot, but we didn't, so we'll block it off with a retailer. But essentially we're going to come into here and we're going to try to sell phones to these spaces in these regions. There's only limited space. We're going to be making a lot of phones and we're going to fight it out. And then down here we have the technology area. So one of the other aspects of the game is researching tech. If you're the first person to make a certain technological improvement to your phones, then you get the patent and you get some victory points at the end of the game. However, everyone else coming up behind you gets that tech for cheaper. And they're still going to want it because it is worth some bonuses and it makes things easier for you. Some of these bonuses are great and you're going to want to get them early and use them to your advantage, so you got to think about it. Is it worth trying to get a patent or is it worth trying to get a bonus? And actually, that's essentially all we need to talk about before we can just start. So let's go ahead and do a planning phase. Planning is more complicated for us than it is for Steve, so we'll talk about us first. So what's going to happen is I have these 2 pads, and then I also have my little improvement that came with my company. This is my starting improvement. And I don't have to use this if I don't want to. I can just use it for free good. But I basically want to arrange these in a way that's going to let me get as much done as possible over the course of this turn. So I have to figure out what my priorities are. I think I want to go heavy on tech for one. And I do need to produce some goods in order to feel like this is going well. So I have a couple of options here. Basically, these pads can be placed in any way that is parallel or perpendicular, and at least one cell has to be covered. It can be an open cell, but you're gonna basically be trying to keep things as good for you as possible in your arrangements, but you're gonna have to make some sacrifices as well. These are also double-sided. You just can't have everything, and you have to make some decisions. So basically, one pad has to cover 1 to 4 cells on your other pad. And you'll have to keep that in mind. So if I wanted to be pretty cheap about it, I could do this maybe. If I wanted to put this somewhere, I would have to. But I don't know that I actually do. I would like this logistics point, but I don't necessarily want my price to go up because I know that Steve's already going to undersell me. Although I guess at that point it doesn't matter, does it? Actually, I don't mind having a high price this time around. So the thing about these little improvements is that basically you place them on the pad and then layer them as if they're part of it. So I can't do this. But I could do something like, if I wanted to sell cheap phones, I could do this. If that was my desire. What I'd really like is to make sure I have enough logistics to go around. It would also be nice to pick up another improvement though, and I have to think about that as well. So give me a second to think, and I'll come back with an arrangement of stuff that I actually like. All right, so even though producing goods is important, I'm actually producing fewer this turn because I'm just not sure I can sell them and they get wasted. So I'd rather build up my logistics and get a bunch of tech points and get an improvement than waste cell phone production. So that's what I'm going to do this time. But, you know, maybe that's not the best choice. You got to make some choices here. So here's what my plan looks like. I might need to move it out of the way. Steve just got his own plan built in. So during his planning, this is his standard improvement tile. We're going to move this up for round 1. He's automatically going to get an improvement every time. And he also gets a good. So Steve is basically right off the hop producing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 goods. He won't be able to sell them all this time, but he's deadly later in the game. Then we're going to set our price. So basically we're going to go up and down depending on what our business plan says. So mine has 1 up and then 1 down. So I'm just going to stay 5. My price didn't change at all. Steve is going cheap on his cell phone. So his price is going to drop down by 2. And what that's going to mean, though, is that he gets to go first on everything from here on out, and that's going to be really rough. I'm not going to be happy about it. In a way, it might have been worth trying to drop the price of my phones, because Steve's going to be able to scoot me over here, and he'll be able to sell first every time his phones are cheaper as well. But that's neither here nor there. This is merely a sample. All right, so we've adjusted our prices. I'm still at 5 because I went up to 6 and then back down to 5. And Steve went down 2, minus. Then we're going to produce goods. So basically, you can be fancy with the inserts, but I never am. I'm producing 2 goods. That's what I think I can sell. Steve is producing 7 goods, and I guarantee you he cannot sell them. So, seeing Steve's little symbol down here, I actually normally do this during the logistics phase, but technically, according to the rules, you're supposed to do it during planning. Steve is going to declare where he wants to go. And the first priority he's going to have, and there's like a little priority list in the Steve rulebook, is he's going to go to the largest region that he can expand to. So he's going to be interested in the central states. And I have to decide if I want to jump in here and compete with him for those, or if I want to kind of move along the edges in a different way. So that's it. Goods production is really simple. You literally just do what's on the pad. Then you come here to improvements. So my improvement situation changes depending on whether this yellow symbol is showing. Steve's, it will just automatically happen. So let's just go ahead and do Steve first. He would be the first player anyway at this point. So basically, if you have the cheaper phone, you get to go first. So what Steve is going to do is he is going to take the top improvement tile and he's going to put it down here, kind of waiting to be used next turn, because you can't use your improvement tile on the turn you get it. You have to wait until the next turn. Then I do have this improvement showing. So what do I want to do? I want to take an improvement tile. So the question is, do I want to produce a good that's cheap and get a tech, or do I want 2 tech? And that kind of depends on the strategy that I want to take. I will want to be producing a ton of phones at the end. I do need to out cheap Steve. So in a game with multiple people, I might pick this, but I think I'm going to take this one instead. And basically, I can either use this on my pads in my business plan, or I can get a free good with it every turn, and I can make that decision differently each turn throughout these rounds. So that's the improvement phase done. If I had not had this showing, I would just get a generic good and get to use that each turn instead. So you get something every improvement round, but maybe it's not as exciting depending on whether this symbol is showing. Then we come here to tech. And the way that tech works is we take our tech points that are showing on our business plans and we do stuff with them. So Steve is going to go first, and basically he's going to go for the cheapest technology that still has a patent to be gotten. So this monster is going to take 3 of these logistics pieces. They look like steps. So he's going to take these 3 pieces and he's going to put them over here. So 3 actually meets the requirement for this space. So we'll take those pieces back, and Steve gets an office building here. And he's also going to get this patent. So I'm annoyed by that because it means he's going to get some points, but it is what it is. There is nothing I could really do unless I wanted to really change my plan to try to stymie him. So I also have 3 points, however, and I maybe want to come here and grab this patent so that Steve can't. And then maybe I want to see if I can keep up in the ante, because I know he's only going to produce 3 tech, so I can stop him from having these 1-turn tech pickups if I'm aggressive about it. But I have to decide if that's more important to me than other things I could be doing on the board. So here I get 3 points. I'm not even going to bother to get my logistics because I know I can just take this. So I get Wi-Fi first. And I'll put my building here. And so this means that Steve doesn't really use the bonuses, but I can. This means that I'm going to get to place a second building once per round in a place where I already have presence. So that's going to be actually really cool during the logistics step, and I'll show you how that bonus works. So Steve did his tech, I did my tech. Now we're going to move on to logistics. Steve has 2 logistics points, and basically he's going to put them here. Even though he could maybe go here or here, that's not what Steve does. He prioritizes the biggest region. So basically what happens here is that you need 4 logistics to actually put an office in this area. So Steve and I started with offices in our regions, but we want to add more. But basically he needs 4. So we're going to put 2 here for now. Steve will not place an office, but we know that next turn he's going to get to the point where he can. Meanwhile, I have the option to make a different choice for my logistics. So maybe, I'm just going to move this out of the way. We're basically done with this at this point. So just you can see I had 2 logistical points, and we'll just move this. So if I had 2 points, I can actually just come here to the West Coast and put my 2 points there that I would just put away so I won't. And then I'm going to put an office building here in the West Coast. So basically that gives me another place to go. The other thing I'm going to do is I don't want Steve to have an easy time competing with me in here because he'll eventually kind of invade the board. So this bonus lets me place a second building once per round in an area where I already have presence. So I can place a second building here in Mexico, and I will. And maybe I should think about ways to block off the West Coast from him, come to the Central States myself. I've got options on these future turns. So that's logistics. Steve made progress in Central States. I moved into the West Coast. And it's not going to do me a ton of good this turn, but it will in the future. Next what we're going to do is we're going to actually sell our phones. And this is where all that area control really starts to matter. So Steve and I are not in each other's way right now, but the person with the cheaper phones gets to sell all their phones first, and the person with the most expensive phones has to wait. That's terrifying, potentially, because you can end up in a situation where you are not actually able to sell all of your phones, even if you could have, because somebody else got there first. So Steve's got 7 phones. He ain't going to sell all these phones, but he's going to sell a lot of them. In fact, he might sell 4 of them. Yeah. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. You start from left, you start the left and you go to the right. Steve cannot sell a phone for 2. Also, this is the only region where Steve can sell phones. Normally he'd spread it out a little bit more, but he only has presence in Washington, so that's where he's going to make his sales this turn. He can't sell here. He does not have the value of 2, so this 2 basically means this person is not going to buy a phone that's more expensive than 2. Unless, because it's a mixed space, you also have 4G tag, and Steve doesn't have that. So neither of these conditions is met. The phone is not sold. Here, he does have a phone that costs 3, though, so he can sell that. He doesn't have the appropriate tech here, but he does have a phone that's equal to or cheaper than $4 or whatever, 4 points. So he'll sell here. He doesn't have gaming, but he has a phone that's cheaper than 6. So he'll do that. And then he also has this appropriate tech, this like GPS location technology. So he can also sell to this space. So basically you can sell to a space if you either meet the price requirement or have the tech requirement. And so Steve just sold 4 phones. Damn. Fortunately, we weren't competing because basically if we were in the same spaces, he would deliberately block off places where I could sell phones just to be a butt. Because of course. But now it's my turn to sell, and I have my little monopoly here right now in Mexico. And I can sell, my phone is worth 5. So I can't sell here, I don't have 4G. I can't sell here because I don't have the right tech, and my phone is too expensive. I can sell for 5 though. I can sell for 6. And if I'd wanted to, I actually could have sold here for another space because I have Wi-Fi. So that's actually not too bad. So now I've sold the phones that I had. Steve sold the phones he could. The rest of these get recycled. They don't go anywhere. They don't get saved for next round or anything. And then now we're going to go into collect points. So this is where you start paying attention to the consequences of your actions. And then these don't come in until the end. So be careful about who has what tech bonuses. So in this case, Steve's going to score first. Because, you know, he's got the cheapest phones, we'll just follow the right pattern. So Steve sold 4 phones, 1, 2, 3, 4. And he sold them for a price of 3. So that puts him at 12 points that he's earned. And additionally, Steve has also gotten some bonuses because he sold the most phones in the region of Washington. And you determine how many bonus points you get for that by which building By the building, basically, it's furthest to the right. So in this case, this one's the furthest to the right, and it's 3 points. So he gets 3 more points. Yikes. All right, so Steve did pretty good, but my scoring situation is actually not so bad. I sold 2 phones, but I sold them for $5 or like 5 points each. So I'm going to get 10 points just for that. So boom. And then my actual regional dominance bonus is a bit better because I placed that second building in Mexico. So I get 5 points for the majority in this particular place. And then once Steve comes around and hopefully places a building here, if I keep dominating it, I'll get 6 points of bonus. That's also where the Central States is worth fighting for because that 8 points, wow. So in this case, I'm going to get 5 bonus points. And after all that, I'm actually only 1 point behind Steve right now. So I am well within range to be able to get him. And the other thing is that if we sell our phones for the same price next round, I have 1 victory point less than him, which means that I'll actually go first in the turn order because that's how priority is decided. So it's not bad to be just a touch behind for part of the game if you want to make sure that you're going first. And then after that, we're going to just have a new round. So we'll restart. We'll put everything back. We're going to reset to 5 points or 5 cost for our phones. Any of our goods will come back and go back into our little containers. Progress points, however, stay because progress happens from round to round. And these improvement tiles will get swept. So this will get swept off the board. And that is a complete turn of Smartphone Inc. You do that 4 more times, see who has the most points at the end, and that's how you know who wins. I like this game. It's very simple. It's very fluid. And the AI is super easy to operate, which I really can't complain about. So if you have any further questions about Smartphone Inc., let me know. Look out for my review later this week. Thank you so much for watching. And most of all, happy gaming.